Let's take The Last of Us and Pokemon, smash them together, and see what we get. Hey all you nerds, Gabe, aka Froopy Art here, and welcome to the first episode of Pop Culture Pokemon, where we take inspirations from various bits of media and turn them into Pokemon. Today we'll be tackling The Last of Us. It should be pretty fun. Oh, and at the end of the video, I'm going to be asking for Pokemon suggestions, so stick around for that. Alrighty, no time to waste, let's begin! We're dealing with the infected, but you know we have to start out small and cute. Well, I mean, as cute as you can make a design that is based on a parasitic fungus. So, for proportions, it gets a big old head and a kinda sad, vacant eye. Eye singular, since we'll be covering up the other one with this gross little growth of fungus. I love the thin little stalks that grow out, kind of, reaching and wiggling. In fact, I ended up scrapping traditional arms in favor of these lethargic tendril growth thingies. And the arms and the mouth and the slight tilt to the head really show that this thing is mostly brain dead, but also kind of bummed about essentially being turned into a zombie. Oh, and I did this little scalloped pattern on the top of the head as an homage to zombies in general. Like something came by and just took a bite out of its cranium. Very fun. All right, let's meet the first stage. This is Fungifect, the infected Pokemon. This unfortunate creature is born with an aggressive fungus overtaking its body. Their eyesight is quite poor, but the growths on its face seem to serve some sensory function. Fungifect aren't the most intelligent of Pokemon, but trainers can still create a strong bond with them, assuming they can deal with their unsettling appearance. And for the ability, it gets Effect Spore, and that means when contact is made with it, it actually has the possibility to poison, paralyze, or cause sleep. Sufficiently adorable, I would say. But now, let's see what happens when it evolves. Now, this is going to be a split evolution based on whether the speed or defense stat is higher. So, let's start out with speed. Gotta love the clicker. I mean, easily the most iconic enemy from the games. And kudos to the design team for taking the, fungal caps and adapting them into a means for echolocation. So we're going to be following their lead here by completely covering up the eyes. This is a creepy little gremlin goblin monster that will, stalk you down in the night. It needs to look a lot bigger than the first stage, but still smaller than what the other side of this split evolution will be. So this wiry build is perfect. It would definitely, skitter after you and chomp your face off, no problem. I also thought that I'd have a lot more problem adapting the color palette from The Last of Us to, work with the more subdued Pokemon colors, but things transferred really well. The only big thing was making sure that I was adding enough highlights to suggest some of that slimy fungus texture that the infected have. Alrighty, let's meet our speed-based evolution. This is Eclofect, the clicker Pokemon. This evolution of Fungifect has lost its vision due to a large growth on its face. Luckily, it produces a distinct clicking noise, which it detects bouncing off its surroundings using this peculiar growth. Eclofect prefer to hunt their prey in the dark. They are quite speedy, and many trainers struggle to keep them under control. And its ability remains Effect Spore. So, that is what you get when Fungifect has a higher speed stat, but what happens when it's defensive instead? Well, we just have to get a Bloater in there. Now, initially, these Pokemon were going to be like a traditional 3-stage Pokemon line, since, in the lore of The Last of Us, the infected kind of develop through the different stages over time. Runner, Stalker, Clicker, Bloater, that kind of thing. But I just love the Clicker so much that I didn't want it to just feel like a boring middle stage. So I'm taking some liberties here. That also means that this design can't be too complex, right? There's a surprise that we'll get to at the end of this video that'll get complex. Anyway, for the Bloater, I wanted to play up that, armored aspect and wanted it to feel very different from the clicker. So I allowed it some softer shapes, big round body. All right, let's learn about Sport Effect, the bloated Pokemon. This evolution of the tiny Fungifect has grown quite large. Its round body is covered with petrified fungal growths, making it incredibly resilient. Though slow, it belches out poisonous spores that cover a wide area. They use a rudimentary form of echolocation to navigate, but their low intelligence leads them to wandering around aimlessly nonetheless. Alright, so we've got our little Fungifect and its split evolution, but we're not done yet. We've got one more design to tackle and a slight spoiler warning for an enemy that's in The Last of Us Part 2. We're also going to be inventing a new evolution method, in which you need to have all 3 of the previous Pokemon in your party and then have one of them level up, at which point they will combine into a new Pokemon. Ah yes, the Rat King. The result of a bunch of infected being locked away and eventually merging into one horrible abomination of fungus and body parts. Our designs up to this point haven't been all that disturbing. I would say that they could fit in the Pokemon world pretty easily, but let's get a bit more disturbing with this one. We're pulling in parts from all of the previous designs, a scared little eye, some clicker hands, and a bloater arm that's serving as a leg. It's also just a great way to get a wonderfully asymmetrical design, which you don't always get to do with Pokemon. The complexity and overall grossness is definitely pushing it for Pokemon, but I'm pretty darn happy with this. Alright, let's say hello to the final and rather difficult to obtain Corpse Effect, the combined Pokemon. Under extremely rare circumstances, a Fungifect, Eclofect, and Sport Effect will merge together to create a new and more ferocious Pokemon. Corpse Effect lack higher brain function and are driven by an overwhelming desire to battle. Building a bond with this unstable Pokemon is extremely difficult, and few have managed it without at least a few scratches and bite marks. And it gets a different ability, which is Toxic Debris, and that scatters poisonous spikes when it's hit by a physical attack, and that's just because I imagine, as you're fighting this thing, you're like knocking off body parts. Yeah, pretty gross. Okay. Yeah, there you have it. You'll have to let me know what you think of this rather unique evolution line based on the infected from The Last of Us, which is your favorite and all that good stuff. Alright, now before we go, I have a prompt for you, as I need some Pokemon suggestions. The first episode of Let's Pokemon Together, a series where I design Pokemon based on your ideas, is coming up soon, so I need your input. Leave your suggestions down in the comments below. They can be as succinct or developed as you want, but here is the first prompt. Food. I actually have yet to design a Pokemon based off of food, so let me know what you think I should do. It can be based off of a food, it could be a Pokemon that is tied to eating food or food in some way, a Pokemon that people eat. I mean, whatever you can come up with, as long as it is tied to the concept of food in some way. Alrighty, I am looking forward to reading your ideas. Later, nerds.